Hello, Tech Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. We're in person, and this is the fastest tech podcast ever because we're going 77 miles an hour at the moment.
Speed limit is 80, so we are not violating the speed limit right now.
We honor all laws legally.
We don't follow them, but we honor them.
In honor.
How are you doing?
I'm all right. This is fun. We're in the middle of a big road trip. Sorry Randy couldn't be with us, but I'm pretty sure he'll be on the next episode.
We can't find space for him, but...
Oh, yeah.
That's all right.
He's in the trunk. What am I saying? Of course.
Insert muffled noises
Yeah.
in the background.
There's been a lot of traveling going on.
Yes.
So, genuinely, this is pretty much the only time available to record. So that's why there's some road noise. We apologize. We'll try to voice isolate it best we can.
If not, enjoy the road.
Don't worry, it's not a normal news setup. This is not going to be the standard
No.
recording.
Just imagine you're on this road trip with us right now.
Yeah, we're driving and we're talking tech, and we're heading into Tech-tember now because iPhone event is officially on September 9th, which is
A Monday.
Monday. Yeah, earlier than I thought. Actually, I might be at your place.
Isn't it technically, or usually it's on Tuesdays, right?
Typically, but there have been the occasional...
Typically Tuesdays.
They love to throw everybody off. It's like, if everybody thinks it'll be on the 10th, then they're like, fine, 9th, how about that? But, yeah, you never really know until they announce it, but...
Sure.
There you have it. It's official. We'll still do the whole reaction stream and coverage of it and all that, but anything in particular you're interested in, or are you kind of just done with the whole iPhone game?
Well, right now, this is being recorded on the iPhone 11 Pro that I had.
That's true.
And
you did the last podcast we recorded.
Right.
Okay.
It's doing fine. I mean, it is in the direct sun right now, so it's good that we're recording audio on your
Yes.
15 Pro.
15 Pro is between us with voice memo. This is just the front-facing camera on the 11 Pro. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see the video component. But
and 14 Pro is in my lap, so we're nothing but Pro here.
I would, yeah, there's 3 Pro iPhones now. But I would say the only issue was that I could tell it was getting hot because it really dimmed the display.
Uh-huh.
But to give the 11 Pro credit, it never shut off.
No?
I thought it might. I was getting worried there, but...
I did an hour and a half podcast, roughly, or I guess hour and 20 minutes.
Yep.
And as far as I can tell, it captured everything.
Yeah.
And actually more.
You were rewatching it afterwards, so it was working.
There's
And,
a vehicle that we did not expect to see on our road trip.
Oh, yeah.
We expected to see it, just not in the spot that
Yeah.
we were. And then we saw it, and you could actually see it in the capture, which is really cool.
so it wasn't completely worthless to have a video component.
No, unfortunately, we're
Got a
not
little
seeing
bit.
any iPads on the road. But
No, not yet. But
not yet. We'll see them later.
the overheating is something I'm running into more and more, even on the 15 Pro.
Okay.
In fact, I would say particularly on the 15 Pro, I'm guessing the 5G stuff never helped. It feels like anytime I'm doing something with a lot of cellular data, the phones get even hotter. I'm curious, how's your experience been with the 14 Pro? Do you feel like it gets crazy hot all the time?
Only when I'm wireless charging.
Oh, yeah.
And typically that's with MagSafe, and so
Right.
it does all right. On the MagSafe Duo that I have, it gets hot as well, and that's mainly because the phone just doesn't physically fit on it.
Right.
Since it's a 14 Pro.
Those camera bumps, they're
Just getting bigger.
Way too big.
I'm interested in seeing with the 16 Pro what that size of camera bump looks like compared to
God.
the 15 Pro, in like with the final product and all that.
I hope it doesn't get bigger, but
I wouldn't be surprised.
I guess that's the trend, right? So,
Yeah. But at least
they can't get too much bigger, otherwise MagSafe isn't going to work, right?
maybe so. Maybe they go the Pixel Fold route, or the just Pixel route in general, where it starts spreading like a not a notch. What do you call it?
Visor?
Visor.
Yeah, I want the visor, but I'll admit, during this awkward phase where I'm not really sure if I want another iPhone or if I want a Pixel, this is the overheating problem is something that's becoming more and more prevalent to me because the Pixel 9 Pros, at least, I don't think it's on the non-Pros, but the Pros both have vapor chambers.
Yeah.
And I've been watching and reading some reviews of them, and people say that it does genuinely work. Like, it does cool the phone down. It prevents it from overheating.
Sure.
And the most disappointing news that I got, I think yesterday, I think it was Ming Chi Kuo posted it, is that he said with the iPhone 17 series,
Oh my gosh.
they're going to add a vapor chamber to the Pro Max, but not the 17 Pro, which means definitely no vapor chambers on the 16 Pros. And I was like,
If we're taking everything that Ming Chi Kuo says as
yeah,
gospel, pretty much.
right. Well, I mean, he's pretty good. You're right. Things could change. There's a chance, but especially with iPhone stuff, he's been pretty accurate. And I mean, Apple rarely does more than what leakers claim they're going to do. Usually Apple does less.
Sure.
So if a leaker's saying not to expect something, those kinds of reports usually end up being way more accurate. So that's...
They are definitely not doing this.
Right.
Seems
Well,
like
I mean-
such a weird report or statement.
It is. Well, I mean, they didn't come forward and say they're not doing it, but to say that the 17 Pro Max will be the first iPhone to get a vapor chamber, that disappoints me. Because I'm like, my phone's getting way too hot all the time, whether I'm just using personal hotspot or charging or even just on a basic video call. I can be on a FaceTime call if it's on 5G, and the display will have to dim. Like, it gets so freaking hot to the touch.
Interesting.
And it dims the display down and stuff. And I haven't officially lost a recording yet. Like, it's never shut off in the middle of a video. But
Good.
still, it's a concern because sometimes I'm filming stuff outside of climate-controlled areas, and I don't want to lose footage or, there's all kinds of car stuff we're filming now over for the Telos of EV or I work in Tello.
Yeah. Your
So-
day job.
I am very concerned about like being outside filming stuff and the phone overheating. Like if that affected my job, my livelihood, that's a problem.
Right.
So
Vapor chambers a lot more on your radar these days.
now it is, but I guess I shouldn't be too obsessed with the vapor chamber itself. I should just be more focused on like, does the new chip have a way of running more efficiently?
Yeah.
If they find some way for the A18 chip to not get so hot, then maybe you don't need a vapor chamber for all my concerns.
Or just any thermal channels that are capable
Right.
of scooping the heat out.
Right. I think now, and for the 16s as well, they plan on just using... woo! Okay. No more autopilot. There's the phantom brake.
Yeah, for those that are listening, we are enjoying the luxury that is phantom braking in the Tesla, which is spontaneous braking
Yeah.
that we get to, I don't know, experience
You
a
just
wonderful
never know.
deceleration.
Yeah.
It's a fun surprise.
It's surprise braking. That's what it's called. You never know suddenly, but anywho, yeah, they use graphite sheets to help dissipate the heat. A lot of phones now. But I guess just right off the bat, I was a little disappointed that the 16 Pros weren't going to have some, adequate cooling systems, it sounds
Well,
like.
we don't know. Adequate is saying vapor chamber inadequate. Maybe is one
Uh-huh.
doing some disservice to what a vapor chamber is,
Yeah.
and also not acknowledging what other thermal management systems, either hardware or software, are in place in the iPhone.
There could be. It's just like, so far to me, engineering-wise, it sounds like they're not trying much different. It's just like, same powerful chip, and they'll probably want to run it at high speed so that it performs well in all the Geekbench tests, but titanium is also not a great thermal, what do you call it, conductor.
Sure.
So
Dissipator.
dissipator. Yeah, I've heard aluminum is actually much better, which is funny because those are on the cheaper iPhones.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I'm not a materials engineer. I'd have to look a little bit more into it. But I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. You get pros and cons with different materials that you use.
right,
Some are more costly, but have a lot better improvements in a lot of different aspects, thermal
Yeah.
or was it hardness or
Right.
durability or anything else.
sure,
But others are a lot cheaper metal to grab, but you're going to have some cons with it. Maybe it just doesn't form well. Maybe
Right.
it does. Maybe you have some way of molding it a certain way that works, but in other ways, you just can't.
I'm just surprised how much titanium is being used now for
Phones.
phones, which really don't need it. Like, it
Seems like a
doesn't-
trend.
It's just meant to make it more premium, I guess. It's supposed to be like a flex,
Yeah.
but objectively, there's really no advantages to it over aluminum. Like, aluminum's cheaper and lighter and probably better at dissipating heat. So it's like, I don't know. It just feels a little tacky to me. You're like, I remember all the billboards in the Bay for the
Titanium.
15 Pros that are like, it's titanium. I'm like, are people really going out and buying it for that? I mean,
Yeah, I would agree. Like, long are the days where you could get a phone that's pretty much all plastic, the
No,
flip phones,
yeah.
and it would still be fine when you dropped it. It's just we're now putting in so much stuff into these phones.
Right.
There is probably a precedent for how durable can we make this thing,
Right.
so that way people don't feel too worried about it.
yeah.
But even so, people just slap a case on it anyways.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, they have all these advertisements for it's titanium, and then 90% of these phones just have a case slapped on.
Mhm.
And it's like, okay, great, it's titanium. Okay. I don't get it, but
Sure.
oh well.
Seems more like a thing that you'd maybe want to focus more towards spacecraft. Or
Yeah.
at least like things that are a lot more,
Weight sensitive?
weight sensitive pretty much.
Uh-huh.
And need that durability, or
Right.
that hardness for the loading that those things undergo.
Yeah.
And which, I'm not saying build a titanium rocket, that sounds way too expensive.
No, but there's components and pieces of it, I'm sure, that
Right.
need to hit certain weight things. But yeah, I don't think the iPhone is that thing, you know.
No.
It's not in that, like, super weight sensitive. And aluminum's lighter, so
Yeah.
I would rather have an aluminum chassis personally.
Yeah, I think the thing with titanium is that you get some of the benefits of steel along with the benefits of aluminum,
Right.
but cost and many other things are the factors. So
Right.
we're pretty much dancing around the
Yeah,
material
yeah.
properties of titanium. for the
I don't think
past-
they're going to stop using it.
No.
But yeah, there's not just iPhones supposed to be happening there. I mean, we might get new AirPods. I don't know how you're feeling about your AirPods. Are you due for an upgrade or okay?
So I mentioned earlier that my AirPods were being finicky. They
Mine
still
are
are tightly, like, slightly finicky. But the issue now is that I'm having to use two different ear tips on them because
Really?
one of my ear tips just ripped off. The rubber just failed.
Oh,
And so instead of curving back around itself,
yeah.
it just kind of goes out like a sea anemone or whatever, or
Huh.
like a tube.
Oh, weird.
And so you can't really use it.
Huh.
And so I took that off, and then I searched around and found my replacement tips.
Yeah.
And pretty much it's either small or large is the option. And
That's
so
a problem.
I did large at first, but it wasn't working well with my ears.
Yeah.
So I went small. And small's working,
Okay.
but every so often I catch like, oh, yeah, this isn't fitting perfectly in my ear. That's weird. In which is probably as easy as finding regular tips either on Apple's website or through a third-party seller or whatever.
I'm
I just
sure
don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, honestly, I'm.
Dude, it's riding in like a little moped
It
on
was
the
like a
highway.
super. It was like a super aerodynamic motorcycle or something. That was,
Well, like something that you'd see at like a fairground or
Yeah,
something
I
like
don't know what he's
that.
doing.
Like a guy with like a box on the back
Yeah.
selling churros.
That's crazy.
Anyways,
But I'm having some difficulty with the AirPods charging.
okay.
Where like one will charge up and one will be completely dead,
All right.
and I have to clean it out and make sure that it's fitting in the case just right. And I'll be honest, I'm kind of tempted to just go with the USB-C wired earpods again.
Do you have them?
I don't, but they're only $19 from Apple. And people have said that they sound good. Like, I think they technically support lossless playback. Not that I care about lossless, but
I'm sure Amazon sells them for a little bit cheaper. Maybe
I think
15
my-
or 10.
yeah. I'm trying to think of like, okay, what times do I really use my headphones? And I realized it's mostly when I'm podcasting with you guys.
Uh-huh.
And when I'm podcasting, I'm close to my computer. And it's kind of annoying me that, my wife's been having issues with her AirPods as well. Like the battery life only lasts an hour. To be fair, those AirPods are from like 2019, so
They've seen a good life.
they've had 5 years. But also, I'm getting more and more like disappointed with the idea that we spend hundreds of dollars on these things, and then just a couple years in, they start breaking or they go bad, and then they need to be replaced. Like every part of my AirPods Pro had to be replaced within 2 years of owning them.
Time scale is a very tricky thing to think about with tech these days.
That's true.
Like, we keep on coming out with new tech. It seems like almost daily. It's probably not, but it seems pretty close to, like, there's always something new that's coming out.
AI tech.
Yeah, and there's always something that's going to replace it the next year, at least from the same company, and sometimes even less. Like, sometimes it gets replaced within 7 to 8 months or whatever, or even closer. So, thinking about that, but then how long it lasts as well is a concern.
Yeah.
And so, like I mentioned before with flip phones, those last for a long time because they didn't have a whole bunch of technology packed into them that could fail. There's less points of failure.
Well, they just straight up didn't get used as much, Pretty much used it for phone calls and maybe some texts, but other than that, they did one or two things pretty well. They just focused on that, but yeah, I think there are times, like if I'm mowing the lawn, where I really appreciate having wireless headphones because the cable's not getting caught on things. And
not tingling around with your arm.
Yeah.
And all that.
So I'm like, okay, there are some times where wired earbuds are, annoying. But when I originally was using Bluetooth headphones, it was like when I was going to school and I was walking between classes a lot. And I guess my use cases maybe have changed a bit since then. Whereas now I don't use headphones as often because I have a desk and a workspace, and usually I'm not around too many other people when I'm working, so I don't mind just using the speakers.
Or when you are, you're collaborating with them.
Right. And I'm just sitting right there anyway.
Sure.
So I'm debating if I should, always be buying another pair of wireless, but apparently the AirPods 4 or whatever they're called they're focusing on like cheaper pairs, which I guess is a good thing. I just wonder how much cheaper they could get. But
what's so different about this version compared to the last?
Yeah. Well, you just showed me. We stopped at a charge station, which was next to a gas station, and you went inside.
All right.
Yeah. What was it?
Let me quickly grab it. It was like wireless headphones.
It looked just like AirPods Pro.
Oh yeah.
But it of course wasn't. It was some knockoff. But honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if it was 90%
wireless earphones is what it's called for $20.
$20.
Yeah, and it looks exactly like AirPods Pro up in the top right corner right here.
And I bet they get the job done. Honestly.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe with certain things, I feel like an iPhone clone, you can just tell. Obviously, it's running a heavily skinned version of iOS. So it's like, I don't want to buy an iPhone clone or an Apple Watch clone. You feel like you're going to get a really stripped down OS, and you feel like you got scammed. And of course, iMessage and all that doesn't work. But with headphones, I feel like it's easier to use. Like my parents use AirPods clones, and they love them. They're like, something this small that goes bad after a while, that you could easily lose. If you're mowing the lawn or, doing something while you're wearing them.
Sure.
Makes me think like, I don't know if this is an item that's worth spending that much money on. It might be easier to just buy the cheap one, and when it breaks, you buy another cheap one. Or hopefully you find a cheap one that doesn't break. But
I think it depends on what you value in music listening hardware.
Right.
And also the software that might tie to it.
Right.
And the cost of it.
Yeah.
And I guess the fourth or fifth thing being the longevity that it might have.
Right.
So if you get these clones and they only last for like a year and a half.
But that's almost as long as the originals.
Yeah.
You got the ear tips coming off, or the batteries one gets quieter than the other.
Yeah, I suppose so, but Also, quality is something else that people focus on.
That's
We
true.
noted it in the last podcast on the EV
Yeah,
one,
some people really care.
where with your partial premium interior in the Model 3 that we're in right now, I noticed almost immediately, even though that, yeah, we adjusted the balance
Yeah, the balance it helped.
and all that, but even
Yeah.
still, I could still tell that this doesn't feel as surround sounding as my
Right.
Model Y.
Right.
And so that is something that I appreciate in mine, is like the
Uh-huh.
surround sound feeling, the bass, the subwoofer and all that. Like
Right.
it feels great whenever I put on a song, and the quality is slightly different from my AirPods, and I can tell between them
Right.
some things are gained and some things are lost between the two.
Right.
It's not actually black and white between them saying like, oh, the Tesla speakers are much better than the AirPods, or
Yeah.
the AirPods are much better than the Tesla speakers.
No,
Like, they
yeah.
both have their pros and cons,
It's a totally different
Yeah.
system.
both in ear or out of ear and
Right.
surround. Like, they have all these different trade-offs, and so I think
Sure.
about that when you bring up the clone AirPods and all that, or
Right.
just a different format. It doesn't have to be a clone. It could just be a less costly version of a Bluetooth headphone,
Right.
and you might still get exactly what you need
Yep.
out of some headphones without much trade-off, besides I saved some money on it.
Right.
Instead of paying $200 or $175 or whatever they cost,
Yeah.
I only paid $20,
Right.
and they lasted just as long.
Yeah.
I saved a decent amount.
Right.
So
No,
I totally
I'd be a lot
understand
more
that.
interested if Apple found a way to extend the life. I don't know. That's something I always appreciated about my Macs over the years, is that they would just go and go and go. Like my iMac Pro from 2017 still works great.
Yeah.
You know, I got something because I needed a mobile editing machine, but I can still fire it right up, and it's fast and it's responsive. And my wife still has a really old MacBook Pro, and my dad uses an old MacBook and an old iMac, and just I appreciated in the early days of Apple how long lasting, and we bring that up with iPhones too. You know, like how great the camera is, or how a lot of people can get by with an 11 Pro, and that's still, you know, it's got a good amount of life at it.
Yeah.
But I guess the AirPods for me might be standing out, as this is one of those parts of the ecosystem that doesn't have a great shelf life. So it'd be cool if Apple was asking for my wishes, what should we do for future generations of AirPods? It's probably not good for their bottom line, because they'd rather you buy new ones all the time. But I would like for them to come up with a way to service the batteries,
Sure.
so that, you know, after all those cycles, they could easily be replaced. I'm sure those batteries aren't big,
No,
so they're
tiny little
probably
things.
really cheap. You need to design them in a way that they're easier to access, and you can pop new ones in. And
I think the form that would take is the EU coming in pretty
yeah,
much.
yeah, pretty much.
It's just going to be another EU coming
They
in
probably will.
saying, hey, you need to do this. You need to replace your batteries
Yeah.
and also support these. And Apple will say no, turns into a court case.
Right.
Probably EU wins.
Yeah.
And then, oh, well, AirPods are much different now.
Yep. Yep. I agree. I think I don't know, just headphones going bad after around 2 years is not
It's a headache.
That's a headache. I agree. AirPods Max, even, those are like $500, $600, and people have had moisture issues, and with moisture getting trapped in there, and then
Sure.
it causes erosion and damage and stuff. So I'm hesitant, but
I think where my conflict is on this is that I can't remember a headphone set, whether it was aux cord plug-in
yeah,
or Bluetooth, that's lasted a long time.
yeah.
I can't really think of a pair that's lasted more than like 2 or 3 years. I mean, I
You
guess
have over ears, right? How long?
yeah, my Sonys have been doing great,
Yeah.
but they also cost a bit more.
Sure.
So I paid for that longevity.
Maybe it's
in a
worth
way.
it if it works, you know. If it
Yeah,
lasts
but then
long.
you think, okay, you put that money into AirPods because
Yeah.
AirPods Pro costs a decent amount,
Right.
and you don't get that longevity out of it. Yeah, of course, there's a concern. So I would agree. Yeah, I think it's more of just an annoyance with how these headphones have aged, at least in the Apple department,
Right.
for wireless headphones.
Right.
And then trying to figure out, I think it's a great idea to kind of go back to the roots of Apple with the EarPods.
Yeah,
and see
I love
whether
those.
how those stack up
Right.
in sound quality and longevity
Right.
for the cost. And then from that, there's a Quicksilver Model Y.
Yeah. That's cool.
All the way out here in the middle of nowhere.
Nice.
But yeah, trying to see how Apple or at least how an Apple product that is still a wired headphone stands in terms of longevity and capability.
Mm-hmm.
And if that doesn't last long, trying a third party might not be a bad idea.
Sure.
And just pretty much getting a gauge for, I mean, there's probably reviews on all these bunch of different headphones, but a longevity inquiry is something that we're interested in at this point.
Yeah.
Is like, are we kind of just stuck in this pool of tech that doesn't last long?
Yeah, I don't like that trend. I definitely, that's part of the reason I sold off my Apple Watch, was because I was starting to realize, like, okay, you buy it, a few years go by, the battery's deteriorated, now you need a new one. Otherwise it can't get through the day, which is kind of important for a watch.
Yeah.
And
I got annoyed with it as well.
you're right.
I don't wear it anymore. I couldn't sell it because the face is so scratched up.
Yeah. No, I didn't get much for mine.
Yeah.
They don't hold their resale value.
Well, you got something back.
I got a little bit, yeah.
What's important?
It was like a couple $100 or whatever, but yeah, it's been nice not having to have another thing to charge.
Sure.
It's just crazy listening to myself right now, because I remember as a kid being like, oh, I hate wired headphones. I love AirPods. I can't wait for Apple to make their own. I was asking for wireless headphones for years before AirPods came out. I was one of the day one, deliveries, and I loved them and used them and recommended them. And now I'm slowly walking back, and I'm like, man, I'm turning into an old man. Like, things are changing. I don't know. It's weird.
I can remember my first set of Bluetooth headphones.
Yeah?
It was like Alltech Lansings that would connect the two buds together with pretty much a bar that you can change some of the settings on, like the volume or that. I think that's also how it charged. You plugged into this bar.
Mine too. I think they were called Jaybirds or something, but they were Bluetooth. I hesitated using the word wireless because there was a wire connecting the two. So.
It's wireless because it's not connected to the device physically.
But there is a wire.
Yeah.
So it feels weird to say wireless.
Well, that was your whole point when I was bringing up my Pixel Buds, the first gen.
Right.
You're like, oh, they have a wire between them.
They're Bluetooth. I wouldn't call them wireless.
Yeah.
If I have to interact with a wire every time I use them, it feels weird to say wireless. But yeah, and I remember I loved them. The sound quality was pretty good, and they had the little controls on the side. But straight up, I was walking a class one day in college, and I owned them for like a year, and one of them just straight up died, and
yikes,
didn't turn back on. And the sucky thing about those was because the wire was connecting the two, you can't just replace one.
Nope.
That's one advantage, I guess, of AirPods, is if one goes bad, you can technically just replace the one piece.
Sure.
But with those, the charger, the battery, everything was integrated.
It's all connected.
So if one goes
so you can't
bad,
even, you'd have it maybe out, I guess.
Yeah.
But then it's just resting on your shoulder or it's dangling off your head.
I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I hated that, having something hanging off.
That is a failure mode that sucks with those early Bluetooth headphones.
But I just loved the idea of being able to walk away from my computer. But I guess I was more into that as a kid when I was using headphones more often now.
Yeah.
I'm married, got a house, you kind of play whatever you want.
I was getting the mail and I left my phone in the car and I parked a little bit away from the mailbox.
Yeah.
And I walked over and I was listening to, I think, a YouTube video or whatever. It was maybe like 1 or 2 car lengths away.
Yeah.
And my headphones already started, my AirPods.
Yeah.
Were having so much issue just trying to connect to the phone. I thought, I'm not that far away from my phone.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, what's the point?
Right. No, exactly.
Do I, is it freedom for leaving my phone on the kitchen counter and then walking around the kitchen? And then possibly going to, the living room a little bit?
Maybe, but you got HomePods.
Well, in the case of this, it's I don't want to be bothering maybe my wife who's trying to rest, or
sure.
Maybe it's early morning and I just want to listen in an ear.
Right.
I don't want to blast music through the house.
Yeah, that's fair.
Or it's just something that I don't really want to blast throughout the house in general. a reaction video or something like that.
Sure.
Someone's screaming. It's like, that is a little worrisome in the morning or the evening.
I get it.
But even still, yeah. So,
That makes sense.
yeah, headphones are a very tricky subject. Just trying to figure out, like, the longevity and cost and all. I mean, even the engineers who are probably behind it are just like, how do we jam as much usage time into this thing
Right.
without making it so costly and without, like, any overheating or
Yeah.
just the cost of it shooting up. I mean,
They're still pretty amazing
complexity of it.
technology when you think about it. Like,
yeah,
how small they are and how good the sound quality is. Like,
sure.
pretty nutty that you can just have a really, really great sound experience in your pocket like that.
There's a lot of tricks that you have to play.
Right.
Like mentioning with the AirPods,
Yeah.
the Pros are the only one right now in the Apple ecosystem that have the ability for active noise canceling, right?
And the Max, but yeah.
Well, yeah, but those also,
Those
like
are
I said, they're
overuse.
making some type of suction and or isolation
Right.
with your ear, or your hearing
Yeah.
canals and all that.
That's true.
So, just thinking, okay, this is how we're going to isolate the sound, so that way you don't hear environment, you just hear what we're pumping in.
Right. But Apple spent a ton of money on their transparency mode too.
Yes.
Which I would still say, of all the headphones I've tried, theirs is still the best. They are very good at just recreating
Reality.
actual sound. Yeah. Like, I can't find another pair of headphones that can match that. So that's one perk, I guess.
Yeah. You won't get that with EarPods.
Well, they're just so open. It's
I
like
guess so.
when you pause the music, you have always on transparency mode. You can hear everything, but there's a lot of bleed through too, which is annoying because that's something I remembered about older EarPods was that you could have them at a pretty mild volume and other people around you can still hear it. Whereas AirPods Pro kind of suction out the rest
It's almost
of
like the difference between analog and digital,
Right.
in a way.
Yeah.
Very much the wired headphones feel more like it's a speaker
Right.
miniaturized,
Right.
where the wireless headphones like AirPods feel more like this is a computer pumping in sound.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
like it's a whole complex thing rather than just it's a dummy speaker in a way.
Right.
Even so, speakers these days have gotten a lot more complex too.
That's true. That's true.
And which you're using
Yeah.
one right now for your sound system at your computer, which
Oh, yeah.
I think is hilarious.
It works. It gets the job done. I'm happy with it, but yeah. Anyway, there's all kinds of things I'm sure engineers are, obsessing over every day to see how they can make things a tiny bit better. But
That's the role.
yeah, yeah,
The role is make it better,
right.
and then we say how, and they say nope, that's your problem, not ours.
Right. Well, I'm kind of surprised with, personally, how much development there's been with like these humanoid robotics in recent history.
I don't really follow it too much, and it's mainly because I'm not really on Twitter anymore, so I'm not actively
Oh yeah,
having this show up right in front of me.
that's probably good.
I'm not actively seeking out robots to replace me or
Yeah,
help me.
yeah.
Like I think I'm managing life on my own, all right.
Good.
Not well, but
Yeah.
like I think I've got a decent thing going right
That's
now.
the best we can all do.
Yeah, so I'm not looking for an improvement of a robot. It would be nice to have one, but
It's coming up because there's some rumors about like a robotic arm on a HomePod that would like have a screen to swivel around, and I can't. I don't know. I can't believe it to me. I'm like, this does not sound like something Apple would do personally. I don't really understand the use case for it, but
I would see a passive arm, like it's just a bracket on a swivel.
kind of like the old iMac.
Yes, exactly
Yeah,
that.
the G4, G5. I forget.
You can adjust it whatever way you want. It's like
Yeah.
a lamp as well, where you can adjust the angle and the elevation.
So this would kind of serve a similar function as like the Nest Hub
Yeah,
screens,
the
where it's
Pixel
like-
tablet where you can dock it to its speaker and all
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I would think that, but more luxurious. But
Right.
in this case, it's not an iPad on a stick. It's a dedicated screen that you can't really take off from.
Yeah,
That's my
you
understanding
mount
of
it.
what you're describing. You
Right.
can't mount it.
Yeah, I could see. Only potential use case in my life would be, well, my grandma has since passed, but back when we were checking up on her pretty regularly, it would have been really handy to have like a mounted, movable FaceTime machine with good speakers that she could really hear us clearly on. And, with the center stage camera, it could track with her and not have to make a complex UI, because we tried to teach my grandma how the iPad works and it just never got anywhere.
No.
She was in her late 90s.
Mine was the same.
Earlier this year. So she never owned a computer.
Yeah.
Never owned a phone. So it wasn't going to be like, oh, grandma, just unlock this and go to FaceTime. And
tap the screen.
That's way too much.
Yeah.
And now my great aunt needs a lot of care because she can't take care of herself. But I was thinking, it'd be so great if there was a way to just call in and check in. And she could just see us and start talking and the call's already going.
Sure.
And you have that home pod for the clear sound. And I was like, yeah, I could see a lot of people utilizing that to try to keep up with loved ones. Or if you want to have a show playing in the kitchen. Or
it makes me think about like the Tesla bot. Or some of the other ones that come up on the market, like from Figure, where they have like a glossy face, pretty much.
Yeah.
So like it appears humanoid, but there's no face on it, so it doesn't look goofy.
Yeah.
But it'd be interesting to like project a face on it. And it's also got like a cellular modem in it or a Wi-Fi thing or whatever, so that way when you call in, the robot is just, hey, you've got a call. Do you want?
Oh my gosh.
You want to answer? And so and so says yes, and or you build in like, oh, when this person calls, just automatically accept or whatever, and then.
I'm sure the tech exists. I just think it sounds so dystopian.
It sounds very dystopian, but that's what I was thinking when you're talking or describing pretty much the home pod with a screen on it.
Right.
I was thinking, yeah, but that's in one spot of the house. Grandma doesn't know, or great aunt doesn't know where the noise is coming from.
Yeah.
Is confused, thinks that someone's broken in or something like that. Where robot is also confusing.
Yeah, I was going to say humanoid robot might be worse. They might think they're getting robbed.
Right. Who are you?
Who is that? Yeah.
Or with the face on it, yeah, as well. Like,
I'm not convinced there's a socially acceptable way to make that happen. I just feel like it will always be creepy and Black Mirror-esque, but technologically, I totally believe it could happen.
I like it. I mean,
like that?
It's very dystopian, but I think that's really great for that use case where...
I've actually joked with my parents about that exact thing.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just like, they say, well, when we're that age... hopefully you can take care of us. And I say, oh, no, I'm going to have the Tesla bot check in on you. And I'll just FaceTime from his head and ask if you need anything. But they usually laugh.
Well, I think that idea of a future is still, it seems very far away.
I think so. It seems like a lot of these startups, and also Tesla, I wouldn't say they're really a startup anymore, but lots of these companies, there's Chinese brands, like they have a whole Chinese robot show where they bring out all these humanoid robots. And I don't know about you, but to me it feels like it's not really a new idea. Weren't there
Asimov has been around for a very long time for Honda. They explored it and found that, this is some interesting technology we're developing.
Right.
Where is it going to?
That's exactly like what I always thought was the problem. It was never a matter of, can we make robot hands? Mm-hmm. Those have existed for probably decades. You can make a little robot with 5 fingers and a thumb, and you can make it.
Any high school student does it.
Yeah,
if they're interested remotely in robotics, you can do it with toothpicks.
And we've had robots that can walk on 2 legs before. Mm-hmm. And I get that Tesla's like, well, we have the engineering know-how to make everything cheaper. I'm like, okay, that's one part of the equation, but I feel like it's always been a software problem. It's always been like, how do you get it to understand context or learn things like a human learns things? And maybe that's why there's a resurgence, is people are thinking with all this generative AI stuff that it'll suddenly all these robots will learn more like we do.
I think I'm more invested in the elderly care aspect of it. Because... at least with both of our grandmas, as far as I can tell, they did not want to go into a senior home.
No.
They wanted to live in their
Well,
house.
no one does. Who does? Yeah.
Well, some people do because they like the community aspect.
yeah.
In which
yeah.
there are care homes that are more like community care homes.
That's true.
Which is nice, especially if you've got friends there.
Yeah,
and it's
that
like,
helps.
oh, great, I'm just hanging out with my friends. We're all in the
Yeah.
same spot. We get to watch Cheers together or something like
yeah.
that. And just hang out.
Right.
They would call it hang out. But anyways, having
Retirement
that...
homes in the future will be interesting.
Yes,
Everyone's just going to play video games.
not too many people think that, or it's not really an illustrious job that people pine over, of
No.
being in a care home.
They're
or helping.
constantly understaffed.
Yes.
They never have enough people.
And there's a
that's
lot of difficulties and all that. A lot of things that these people have to cater towards.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's an exhausting job, and so that's why I think, okay, having something that can adapt
true. Yeah.
and won't get too fatigued, like a
Uh-huh.
robot, would be nice. And then especially being able to, for it to be modular, it doesn't have to be at the care home. It can be
Uh-huh.
in someone's home if you've got enough funds, or it's,
Right.
it's a subscription or something.
Which helps with their mental health.
Yeah,
From what
having
I've
some
heard.
interaction as well.
Well,
Being-
no, I mean, like, just staying at home.
oh,
There's a lot of evidence that the dementia and Alzheimer's gets worse when you take them out of their known
their pattern is
residence. Yeah, the pattern, if they get moved into it. That exact same thing happened with my great aunt. Like, she was deteriorating, but then once they put her in the home, it got much, much worse. So keeping
Yeah.
them at least in their own place so that they know where they are and they don't get as confused. But
gone. How the mind deteriorates is a very interesting subject.
it's very sad.
But I think
It's hard
that's
to
where
watch.
these robots can come in and help. And I think that's where a lot more focus needs to be put.
Yeah.
But that's just my opinion.
I'm more pessimistic on it. I'm less convinced. I just think there's, with humanoid robot use cases,
Mhm.
it's just billions of edge cases. It's just a bunch
Sure.
of really complicated tasks that are very conditional. It's like, oh, well, when that happens, no, now you have to be different. Or when, oh, this is different, now you have to know this. And
Yeah.
just really basic things that a human understands, like, oh, yeah, they need this, or we need to clean up this.
Mhm.
A robot just misses so easily. And I've seen a lot of demos of walking and standing and moving arms around, but
Moving objects from one side of the table to the other.
yeah, just nothing very intricate that's really wowed me yet. Like, nothing I've seen that makes me go, oh, now they've got something. This could be...
I don't know, the parkouring Atlas that Boston Dynamics made
That was
was
entertaining.
always entertaining to me.
I
And
love
then
watching those.
what they implement at Disneyland or wherever
Uh-huh.
with the Spider-Man robot.
Those
Or-
are cool.
That's pretty cool because that way you're not potentially injuring someone, and they're having
Right.
it's a repeatable thing that you can do all the
Oh,
time.
yeah.
And even though sometimes it messes up, which is kind of goofy and funny,
Right.
they can play it off as "Oh, I'm okay" and all that, like on the
Right,
mic, so the
right.
kids don't get worried about it, and they just have
Yes.
to reset the robot and or just bring out a new one if the other one got broken.
For entertainment, I agree.
Yeah.
I do think there's some value there. But if you watch the behind the scenes of Boston Dynamics,
Mm-hmm.
that thing messes up a lot. And they
Right.
only post the successes. And it's
Well, no,
also,
they post the failures as well as bloopers,
Right.
but
I mean, the successful video they stitch together, and,
Well,
and that's
yeah.
the one that goes viral, of course. But
because that's what they want to show off is
Right.
look what it's capable of
I
doing.
would do the same thing.
And it is capable of doing it because
But-
it did do it.
That's a very, very different use case of, like, let's make a viral video versus this is something that needs to, like, work with people routinely
Sure.
and get a job done, rather than let's film this thing 20 times and we'll post the best out of the 20 times. And they have to manually program a lot of it.
Sure.
And I know the Boston robots are quite expensive. They're definitely not designed for affordability.
No.
They use really expensive components to keep it lightweight. And I also know the batteries on them don't last long at all. They're very short.
No,
to
but that's
keep the
not
weight
their it's like saying that the athlete needs to eat tapioca quickly. It's not meant.
No.
They're not meant to do that.
Right.
The athlete is meant
It's
to
not meant for
run
that.
the quarter mile
Right,
or the marathon
right.
really well,
I agree.
or the mundane grandma making tapioca
Yeah.
is really good at making it taste good, but that's because
Right.
she knows how to make it real good. Like
Yeah,
it's different
yeah.
specializations. So that's why I think trying to equate Boston Dynamics and Atlas, whether it's the old version or the new version,
Yeah.
to I don't know, like Tesla bot or
No, they're very, very different. I
yeah,
agree.
it's very different use cases, or even like Spot, comparing Spot that Boston Dynamics
Yeah.
makes.
Which
Like-
a lot of companies do use now.
Yeah, it's been a very successful product as far as I can tell.
I honestly think that form factor might be a lot more successful / scalable.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is like, do you want to try and make something walk on 2 legs, 3 legs, or 4 legs? Which one's going to be the most stable?
I don't know how you do 3 legs, but
Tripod, pretty much.
yeah, it's gonna hop.
It's always on 2 legs, which is the better way to do it, I guess. It's almost moving like a spider,
I
pretty
can't
much.
visualize it.
Okay,
4 legs seems a lot simpler.
sure.
You have a lot less weight balancing acts that you have to figure out with a 2-leg system.
Mm,
Suddenly becomes very, very easy for it to break itself
yes.
by making very simple mistakes. It can fall over just with like basic stairs, or it steps on something.
Mm.
Whereas the 4-legged thing seemed,
That was a lightning going the other way with a trailer.
oh wow,
Look at that.
that's sketchy.
Out in the middle of nowhere.
Way out here, towing in an EV. My gosh.
Little EV jab right there. But,
Yeah.
yeah, it is concerning when you see all these companies trying to make a bipedal robot and they're all just falling over or they're not really impressive.
Well, to me, I guess what annoys me is so many that I've seen on Twitter or on YouTube or through Tesla are just trying to seem to impress me that they've made one that can stand.
It organizes batteries.
And very basic. Like,
And it's still messing up on where it's placing it.
yeah, and I saw they were like hiring people because it needs lots of data, like most generative AI.
Mm.
So they need to. Tesla was literally hiring people to do basic mundane tasks so that they can track the motion and use that data to train the bot.
Mm.
But again, like we've seen with FSD, it's a endless trail of edge cases. It's
Right.
just like, okay, you're kind of getting it, but you screwed this part up and you didn't get that.
Mm.
And figuring out that last few percentage points to actually make it reliable and successful is nearly impossible. So I keep waiting. I keep watching these videos because it sounds like dystopian and kind of futuristic to imagine a world where these humanoid robots could be walking around and getting work done and
Mm.
doing things that humans used to do. But
Do you think we just need to skip the bipedal robots and go straight to hover robots?
hoverbots?
Yeah, they just hover around
I mean-
and do things.
I think there's individual advantages of some of these things, like having really articulate hands. I could picture like a factory line where the bot doesn't have legs,
Mhm.
but you just have a very well agile and dynamic arm and hand
Those exist.
that just puts together a couple of parts.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of factory work now.
Yeah.
It's just people doing 2 or 3 tasks on the assembly line. And yeah, like you said, that's already pretty automated.
It's already implemented. You see
So-
it in a whole bunch of factory show-off videos
Right, right.
from all these companies. It's like, look at the automation that we're doing.
Right.
You see the typical, I forget what brand it is, but it almost looks like the Asimo or
Yeah.
I forget the other company that made similar looking robots, but pretty much like that sleek, rounded design
Yeah, yeah.
where it's like white and then maybe blue or red.
Sure.
And, it's typically rounded on the longer parts, and then you get to
Uh-huh.
the joint and you have a typical like joint that doesn't look complicated. It's just like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
it just
they keep it
actuates
simple.
one direction,
Yeah.
and then this one actually it's multi-axial.
But I would guess all of these humanoid robot startups or companies we're seeing are not aiming for that. I don't think they're aiming for like an assembly line arm.
Well, it's already been achieved.
Right,
An
exactly.
assembly line arm.
But I think the reason they're pursuing this humanoid thing is because they're convinced with today's generative AI software, they could make something that could replace, thousands and thousands or maybe millions of human jobs. Just going straight for like manual labor jobs or boring jobs or repetitive, like you talked about with elderly care, or honestly, there's a bunch of like fast food places that are still struggling to find
Work.
They can't get people, and I don't blame. I wouldn't want to work at Burger King.
No.
Last time I went there, it was a freaking mess. There were 2 people. They were clearly understaffed, trying to get this food ready for like 30 people that are all impatient and screaming and yelling, and it's a zoo in there.
It's awful.
And I'm like, yeah, in this situation, I'm like, I think humanoid robots, if they could learn everything and do everything, this would be a great time.
I just picture the robot putting fries into a cup,
Yeah.
and then putting the cup underneath the soda fountain, and then putting in like lemonade or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, drinks, I'm honestly so surprised hasn't been more automated.
Right.
I've seen so many Dutch Brothers open up, both in my town and around the world, around the country.
Around the world. Wow,
Well,
you're going far.
Well, I mean, they weren't called Dutch Bros, but in Thailand, where I went last year, there were these vending machines that had literally like hundreds of drink options. And you would just select one and it would mix it right there in the cup.
Sure.
Because really that's what they're doing at Starbucks or Dutch Bros is they're
Carbonated
just
water and syrup.
pumping a bunch of different syrups, and whichever flavor you want just affects the syrups. I'm like, I'm surprised these Dutch Bros still need people. I'm surprised they can't find a way to just put a fairly durable, big screen out there and you just tap what you want and it just becomes a big vending machine. But yeah, there's jobs like that where I'm like, yeah, I don't even think the automation is taking away jobs. I think it's straight up just not enough people are working there because they get yelled at. It's exhausting. It's tiring. The pay is rarely good. So this would be a perfect job for a robot to fill in just so that we could have a more efficient food system.
Well, that then directs me towards why not just augment your kitchen to be more single or multi-arm robot.
Yeah, which they are doing,
yeah.
to be fair. Yeah.
Like I went to Vegas last year and they had was it like a s'mores machine or a ice cream sandwich machine or something like that?
Wow.
It would make you an ice cream sandwich there.
Yep.
Like it had already pre-baked cookies that
wow.
some guy came in, or maybe they got them from Chips Ahoy or some other company. It'd pick out the cookies and then it'd get the ice cream, put it on there, smooth it out and all that.
Right.
Maybe add some sprinkles, or you can customize it, add some whipped cream and sprinkles and whatever else, chocolate sauce.
Yeah.
It'd make it a very sugary delight.
Right.
But it would do all the work.
Right.
And it's just a nice small little box.
Yeah.
I mean, small as in like probably from you and I to the front of the Model 3.
Yeah, it doesn't take much.
It's not like a tiny box, but it's big enough to where it's like, oh, I mean, you can store that in the corner over there and it'll make ice cream sandwiches for people and they'll do fine.
There's a little documentary I watched. You can look it up on YouTube. It's like 10 minutes, but there's Chili's has switched to a more automated burger grilling system where it's like on the stovetop, and then a hot piece comes in and it can grill both sides a lot faster. And
Interesting.
it's not like robot arm level, but there are some startups working with that where they can literally flip burgers. But what I was seeing from the Chili's little documentary bit was that it's easier and cheaper to not go the robot arm route and instead just design a stove that can cook the top and bottom at the same time, and they can churn out burgers much faster that way. So there's all kinds of optimizations that can be done now, which is why when I see those humanoid robot videos, I'm just like, nah, I think you're trying to make like a general purpose, just you basically want to make a human that does anything you want, which is kind of weird. But
yeah, but that's what the corporation wants, right?
Well,
they want something that they can control, and they don't have to put in too much time, effort, money, pay, everything.
I think that's the real key. Like, if you're watching those videos or those announcements, a robot that can move its arms around, pick up a backpack. That was the one I just watched when we were stopped. Was this gal is sitting on her couch, the robot's standing there, at the ready, and she gets up and is like, "Oh, can you hand me my backpack?" And it's like, he like very slowly picks it up and hands it to her, and she's like, "Thanks." It saved probably 2 seconds, and this is likely a $3 million machine.
Well, it's a prototype right now.
And they're like, well, it'll get cheaper over time. But I'm like, yeah, the magic of that industry is not going to be in making a robot that can bend down and balance. That's the relatively trivial stuff. Like, ooh, he can pick up a backpack. Wow. No, it's like the tricky thing will be understanding his surroundings, and in order for it to be profitable for businesses and corporations, the train time has to be really low. Like, it has to understand what you're teaching it quickly. In
That is a
order for it to
challenge.
be practical. Like, if you can train it and tell it to do things and it remembers them faster than a human, that's when I'd be like, okay, you've got something special there. But
Computers can think faster than humans, or they can compute faster than humans.
right,
But
like a calculator can obviously do super advanced math much faster than
Sure.
we could.
but the direction of pretty much how to solve a problem
Yes,
is the concern.
right.
This is nice.
Yeah, we're going.
We're gonna be going through a tunnel here, so sorry for the.
We'll see.
I remember this.
We'll see how the 11 Pro handles.
Well,
Hey!
there's a decent amount of light in here
They
as well.
they keep it light. Yeah, that's cool.
but getting a nice view right here as well.
11 Pro is not bad.
Thank you.
I miss this size, the 5.8 inches, and the rounded chassis. I was picking up your phone the other day, and it felt really nice.
I like how you've switched between when when we had the rounded chassis for so long. You're like, square it off, it'll be nice, it'll be great to have that back, and then we get the square up. Like, actually, this is cutting into my hands a little bit more. I kind of want the rounded
I
back.
genuinely don't remember being that on board with the squared edge design. From
Yeah.
what I recall, I remember my first phone was the 5, and it was squared off. And then when we switched to the 6, I remember like, this feels so much better.
Okay.
And then when they were bringing it back for the 12, I remember thinking, I mean, I think it looks cool, but I think it's mainly just they need a way to make it feel like it's different, because there's not enough changes year over year.
Sure.
So it's kind of like a fashion trend. It comes and goes.
Did we? I guess this is me not paying attention to the
That's okay.
exterior design of iPhones. Have we done or gone back to the original design of rounded on the back and flat on the front? Or
The 5C was kind of close to that, but not really in recent history.
Because I could have sworn there was a few leaks, I think last year, that were saying, "Oh yeah,
Yeah,
the 16's gonna do that, or the 15, or
they were
the 17,
definitely
or-
off. They did say that the chassis would be more rounded,
Uh-huh.
but they didn't have CAD files or renders.
Sure.
Yeah, we're in a beautiful.
We got
area
some
right
big
now.
monuments right
It's
now.
very distracting.
We'll add these to post for y'all.
But part of the rumor was true. Like on the 15 series, they did round off the chassis more.
Uh-huh.
So it's not as sharp in the hand, but it definitely didn't curve off as much as I was hoping. Like, I wanted the curvature on the back to be as drastic as it is on the 11 Pro. But it still retains kind of that boxy.
Those are fake flamingos.
Oh.
Someone put fake flamingos out here by a stream.
Way out in the middle of
I
nowhere.
feel cheated. Anyways, we haven't gone back
Interesting.
completely to the rounded and
No,
straight
but I
design.
do think there's a legitimate reason from what I understand. I believe that there is some durability and repairability advantages to having some flatter sides and some flat glass.
Mm.
I think, from what I understand, that does simplify some stages of the repair process, because the 14 in particular, but even more so the 15 and 16, they got much, much better at back glass repair than before. Or replacing the battery used to require you to take all these things off, and now you can do it without taking the screen off. So I do think they're not just purely going squared off for the sake of, we got to make it look different.
Sure.
But yeah, they rounded off the corners to make it a little more comfortable, which I think is noticeable. But it's more the size I miss than anything. 5.8 inches is such a sweet spot.
Yeah, I really do hope that we revisit small phones again.
Someday.
Someday.
Please. Because, yeah, unfortunately at this next event, we're going to get the biggest iPhone yet.
Ugh.
6.9 inches for the Pro Max.
By we, you mean humanity.
As a species. This is our largest iPhone. Yikes. Yeah.
I'm not getting it.
Some people are using these things all day, every day, so they basically live on them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, why do I need an iPad? I can just have a giant phone. Kind of gets the job done.
Yeah, I kind of like this specialization between them, where I've got the iPad for reading, drawing, whatever.
Yeah, I get that.
But I don't need something huge, so iPad Mini works.
I love the mini iPad.
Or I need something that fits my pocket where
Yeah.
I need to send a quick message or call someone or whatever.
Yeah.
Phone doesn't need to be huge.
Mm-hmm.
Can be small. It's fine.
Which
That's just
they're-
my use cases.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think a lot of people are that way as well.
Like, I think Apple's smart for the product lineup that they've made.
Oh, yeah.
Like computers, tablet. I mean, that's where everyone's kind of gone pretty much. It's
I
just
think they've done their homework and they figured out how to maximize
this is
sales.
what people want.
Right. Yeah.
In which the Vision Pro is kind of the weird, odd Fabergé egg in the group.
Yeah, it is. I appreciate it for being interesting. Like,
Mhm.
it's quite a bit different from everything else in the ecosystem, but I think there's a lot of future stuff that will make it more compelling. But obviously, right now, it's not worth it. But
The risk taking is what I appreciate.
yeah,
Even though that it's not something that's going to be widely used.
right.
At least you're developing tech that can benefit something, either in your
Yeah.
existing product lineup or itself in the future,
Right.
or some use cases that people have that aren't really as fluid, streamlined, or possible
Uh-huh.
with the current tech.
No, it's definitely refreshing because so much of Apple is doing the safe thing.
Yeah.
It's so much like just do a slightly different version of this phone or this iPad. Here's a new chip. Here's another new chip. Here's a faster one. And that gets repetitive and tiring after a while. So to finally have them kind of exploring a underdeveloped market that's trying to figure out what its market is, yeah, it's like it is a risk. It is kind of risky to release a $3,500 headset that doesn't have that many apps
Mhm.
and is kind of heavy. You got to hold this battery on the outside. It's like, wow, really, Apple? You're okay shipping something like this? But yeah, they did it, but I'm pretty sure sales have flatlined for it.
Yeah. It is tough. Which makes me concerned about something like a HomePod,
Oh, yeah.
that has a swiveling screen on it,
Yeah.
whether it's motorized and can actuate or not.
Yeah,
But I guess kind of wrapping up this conversation,
sure.
a question I have for you is if Apple did make a robot, would it be able to open windows?
Okay. Okay. Should have seen that one coming. Yeah, I could press the computer,
Oh, okay.
the power button on the computer. Why
To turn it off.
Yes.
You don't need this.
Yeah, turn that off. Buy a Mac. When you're asleep, the bot grabs your iPhone and orders a bunch of Apple products.
Right.
Where does the charge port?
I would think back of the neck. Or at least if it's going to plug itself in.
I just hope all these things have a kill switch that's very accessible.
Yeah. Put a giant red button on its forehead.
Yeah, like you could just boop and it
Should have had a V8.
it's dead. Or like a little red cord right in its Adam's apple.
So you just get your
And
katana that you've had in your room hung up above
Yeah.
the bed frame. And you just...
Oh no, it just you have to physically
Oh,
and that
yank.
red cord
Oh, it's like
is
a...
the power.
Okay.
It's the direct power to the battery. So it's not a software thing. It's not something the robot could like override.
Sure.
It's a physical hardware disconnect.
Yeah.
Um,
I was thinking more like the buses, where you pull the red cord to stop the bus.
oh yeah, it could
Something
be
like
something
that.
like that.
It could just be... I mean, I think that's all you need,
Yeah,
is for it to
because the
disconnect
Windows
or whatever.
robots are gonna get a virus and start killing people. Remember, Elon was like, "Oh, we've designed it so that it doesn't run very fast. That way, you can outrun it if it turns on us." And I was like, "It's kind of a double-edged sword. If you want a robot to be practical, unfortunately, it kind of has to be deadly. If its fingers are capable of holding a heavy bag, Like it can lift groceries in and out of a car. That means that the fingers have to be durable enough. 65 years.
Durable enough to.
It could be. That means it's got enough muscle and it's got enough torque that it could, gouge your eyes out or choke you. Or,
Jeez.
It's not like impossible if it got some bad code. But
Sure.
again, I'm not worried because I think that they're not going to be mass produced, because I think the AI stuff and the software is going to be way more complex than they think it is. I think they're all hoping that machine learning solves all the problems, but I don't know. Hopefully I'm wrong.
There's a lot more things that need to be developed before we get to that.
Yeah.
Like, you can have one of these things sitting in your room, but is it going to be useful or at least as utility capable
Yeah, that's the trick.
as it appears, I guess, right?
Yeah.
You look and you think, oh wow, I could see it running around, jumping, grabbing things from the top shelf and all that.
Right.
But it might just be pretty much like this porta potty being towed behind the truck. It might just stand there, do nothing.
Yeah, like I remember getting excited watching the latest Tesla bot updates, and because it picks up an egg.
Yep.
And I was like, is it gonna like crack the egg and cut? And no, that was the end of the demo. The demo was it can pick up an egg.
Yeah. Which is impressive.
I guess that's cool because it means it has to be delicate, like it has to apply the right amount of force.
Sure.
So I see a lot of demos that are like, I'm sure the engineering team is very proud of what it just did, but picking up an egg is not that doesn't make it useful. That's
Hey. I have a business where people just pick up eggs, Drew.
I mean, in my opinion of what you're alluding to with its functionality of, okay, it's picking up an egg, I would take that as it's going to cook something, even if it's something basic. And I would say picking up the egg is step one of 30 steps. And steps 15 through 20 are far more complicated of figuring out exactly how to like keep the eggshells out.
We didn't even get to the egg sandwich yet.
No, like we are so far. Even just making basic eggs,
Sure.
just like scrambled or anything like that is, again, there's probably a machine that can have just pre-made egg formula and just spits it out.
Oh my god.
I'm sure that's a thing. I wouldn't be shocked at all.
Oh.
Have you seen those pancake makers?
Yeah, but I'm just thinking a reservoir of eggs.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's an egg sack
I've
inside
made
the
them.
robot. Oh.
They just come in a carton, and then you just heat it up, and
Nope.
it makes scrambled eggs.
I'm done with the podcast now.
All
This
right.
is awful.
Enough
This is awful.
eggs. That's enough. We've scared Mike.
Ugh.
We need Randy back. We're gonna find
You need to replace me at this point.
Mike's like,
Replace
I'm
me
not
with a
doing
robot
this
and then
anymore.
bring Randy in.
You're right.
And then Robot Mike will kind of just sit there and
All right.
try to hold an egg.
Yeah, I'll be impressed when it makes eggs, Tesla. I'm not impressed for it picking up an egg. Or if it could peel
A banana?
an orange or a banana would be cool.
Bananas are delicate.
Again,
Oranges spurt around as well. So.
that alone wouldn't justify the expense, but it's a step,
It is a step in the
and
right
yet
direction.
I've yet to see them figure it out. But then think of how many different kinds of banana
Oh my
there
gosh,
are.
stop.
Now this one's more ripe. Oh, you broke it.
See, now you just need a banana dispenser
Right.
from the robot. It
Right.
just becomes a food dispenser at that point. It's a slurry of food. It just becomes powder and water.
Right.
You want it to taste like banana? Here's that.
Yep. I just picture it leaving all these banana peels and eggshells in your food. It's just this horrible thing. It's like, what? I did what you said.
Oh.
All right. Well, thanks all for listening to our tangents.
Our horrible robot ideas.
We'll see you again soon.
Bye.
Bye.